Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the part of Christopher Runciman will be played by Bob Schwartzman. And on with our program. Okay, hi. Hi, everybody. I've got a bunch of pages that I got laid out that I've got to finish. It's been one of those weeks where lots of things going on. So, lots of stuff to get done. This is a page I started the other day. And I've been completing all these other different things on the side and pages for other things. But this is a page we started. I was talking about this last night at the Comic Jam. And what the principal idea is here is that I rough out the drawings with this Econoline brush pen. And it's checking to see if I think it's water-based. Yep. Pardon me. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry about that. Hiya, Liz. Welcome on board. Hey, thanks for joining my Patreon, Liz. Superstar. Really appreciate it. And hiya, Chad. Welcome aboard. Good to see you last night at the Comic Jam. Okay, and welcome to everybody. So this is something I was talking about last night about starting to scribble in a composition with the brush pen, and then you develop it from there. One of the things I like doing is that I'll take, non-photo blue. Hey, Malcolm, how you doing? Welcome aboard. And I'll start to flesh things out. But then, cats are fighting in the background. Sorry about that. Lucy wants to play with Corbin, and Corbin wants to have a nap. That's the problem of having two very differently aged cats. Okay, so what I do with the blue pencil is that I pull the highlight lines, the separators, like I've got big outlines on here, and we're doing a similar process here to just separate characters from one another. And yet, so while my cameras are never really the best, when it's scanned, you'll see a nice distinction between the three different values here. Chad had a blast last night. Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. Oh, Malcolm's doing some D&D stuff. And Liz says hi to everybody, including the Fighting Cats. The Fighting Cats. I'm going to start a band and call it the Fighting Cats. And our album will just be a picture of, Lucy trying to get, disenfranchised Corbin to get up and play with her while he's trying to have a nap. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here, is that I'm running through and separating our characters as they dwindle off into the background in this lineup. And what it does is it helps the viewer to understand one person in front of the next. I don't have to do an awful lot of, demarcation, really. It's little bits and bobs here, lets you understand where the arm is as opposed to the body. There's a purse hanging over here. Somebody's got a backpack, so on and so forth. Different types of haircuts, and little fun bits of business. As I was drawing through this, I thought that maybe I might do a robot in the lineup. Guess why not? We've got this kooky character here standing behind him in the larger image. So the idea of taking this waiting in line and expanding on it doesn't mean we still can't have some fun. So the question being is that, do I do this as one long panel across the top? Or do I break it in two because it gives us more space for story points? Or do we just keep it the one? I think breaking it into two is helpful because we've established here that, yep, they're all lined up. And so what I'm going to do is just use the right colored pencil and break off that panel. And then I just want to check and see what the spacing was on the last gutter between panels, and we'll just do the same here. So come in with a Stadler. Take that. I don't really need to because, you know, we can clean that up digitally, but there we go. So, so we just need a little bit more, you know, at least one more person in the foreground here. I'll just put a rough in a shape, and then, you know, a little, you know, really complicated, detailed pieces of information there. And then we'll move on to, whoops, to our next, oh, I had the right one, to our next panel. So it's, you know, with whatever page and whatever materials that we're using, play, have fun, you know, see what combinations that you can put together in this way that may well pull something different out of the way you would lay out your page, how you would do your projects, your work, and see if it gives you something that you may find some interest in, you know, to put into other projects. Like, oh, I really like, you know, how the blue kind of glows, like the different blues in our image, as opposed to using blacks. There's a sort of life in the blues. Well, you know, play with that, explore that a little bit, and see what you'll discover for yourself. There's so many different things that we can use and draw with, and, you know, you're always going to find new and interesting possibilities. Uh-oh. We hear that. I hear that. The kids, hey, I need a hand. You gotta give me a hand. Well, within reason. Where's the moral and ethical line? Ma and Pa, I just blew up a planet. Can you help me hide this planet off of all the stellar maps? This could be a problem for someone in the future. Who knows? So little details, little differences. This person's belt, you know, we got another belt peeking through there. We got the purse, the bag. Here's a young man wearing a hoodie. You know, you can accentuate seams in some shoulders as opposed to in the next, you know. But it's just playing, just making enough visual differentiation to keep the eye moving along. But don't be afraid to play around, try different things. So here's a person who I've just flattened out, you know, with a base dark value. So we'll just emphasize that a little bit. I'm not going right to the outside edge though, because I like how that color will switch things up a little bit. So I hope everybody's had a good day, a good evening the night before, and there's some fun things coming up online here. We've got some things that we're going to do. Lori joined me in the studio to talk about books, and that went really well. We had a good time. It was fun. We talked about some of the different things that we're reading, and, you know, the very different types of literature that we both like. You know, I like a lot of fiction and or, you know, kind of clinical analysis stuff, and Laurie likes a lot of nonfiction and biographies, which is, in my opinion, largely fiction. That was the day that I discovered I was the most powerful actor on earth. Interesting. Next. There's a funny thing about somebody has some sort of nominal position in society, and then they write a book about, you know, their perspective on the world, and say, who cares? I have one son who says and one who doesn't. Well, I hear that, you know, they're all different, right? Okay, so I think for the next panel, what I want to do is extend this even further. Like I want to push the idea that, our characters, like, so we've got them coming towards us. We've now got them moving off into this direction here. Now, if I put them all moving this way in this panel, it's going to be a little disjointing. So, I want to kind of try to find some kind of middle ground. And I think that the way I'm looking at it is to have them, facing out in that direction, but in an angle that moves the viewer's eye downwards. So, let's see what we can figure out. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use this light blue, and we're going to loosely put it into place, our idea. But if I've got my foreground character here, and then as our line extends out, it moves in this direction. This implied line along their feet should move the viewer's eye that way. That's the theory, So I don't get too worked up about it all as I'm sort of laying it together. Let's just throw some shapes down. We understand rough shapes of people, but we're going to do all our defining lines with the pencils. So you're not too worried. Like if there's bleed edges and stuff like that, like you see in this one, see there's a bleed edge over her hair here. Who cares? That's something easy that we can remove. We can edit out digitally, or we can put some white ink over it, whatever it is. But what's important here is the action of laying in these characters. I like that the kids are all different. I'm really proud of our kids. They're all a bunch of great kids. And they're taking on life and doing their best with it, and that's all anybody can hope for. But they're very different, and different experiences and choices, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm putting our guy in here, taking some of these marks and turning them into, facial hair and the like, and then we're going to follow this line over here to turn that into a shoulder. Just seeing what the smushing around of the light blue is giving us. Oh, see, that kind-heartedness is wonderful. I mean, but at the same time, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because unfortunately, you hope they don't have people around them that are going to take too much advantage of that kind-heartedness. And that could well be the case. So I'm going to put a script in this guy's hands. He's studying, maybe they're here to, I haven't decided really where this is going yet. I think it's going to be, they're all trying out for something. I don't know what. Maybe a new Star Trek series that doesn't suck. I do not understand a lot of the franchise projects that are coming out now, and how they kind of miss the basic point of what the voice of each of those projects has been over the years. I don't get it. Why would you? It's like showing up. Let's do a Tron film. This is necessarily an example, because I haven't bothered watching the new Tron, because it's got Jared Leto in it, and that's all I need to know to stay away. And guy's a terrible actor. He plays Jared Leto, an extreme narcissist in everything he's in, and it's boring. So, but if you're going to do Tron, take a look at what Tron has been, instead of trying to let's do it like if the Matrix invaded our world. It's like, oh, jeez. Doesn't make sense to me. But what do I know? Kopinski's 54, says Chad. Well, geez, there you go. I was sure the guy was in his 40s. Maybe I watched an old video when he said he was in his 40s. Well, but that doesn't tell people to take care of themselves physically as they get older. It's a common thing that happens to people in their 50s. So let's just give this guy's face a little bit of structure as we move on. All right, so we're going to have this line receding off into this direction. But before that, we'll do, I don't know, let's do a gal. And I'll have her standing beside him. And seeing what that's going to give us. Yeah, I like opportunities when you have a whole bunch of different characters in an environment. That to me is just a lucky thing. I didn't mind the new Tron film. It could have been worse than the Badlands. You watch that? Yeah, it's tricky. It's a sci-fi being made. I know somebody who thinks that he said to me this yesterday, is that the absolute best things that he thinks have been produced in the last year were the two 28 days later and 28 years later and 28 years later Bone Temple, I think it's called. And yeah, he really enjoyed those. But there's been lots of cool stuff. I would not put Tron or Badlands in that list. You know, Jared Leto's got the depth and range of Tom Cruise. Hey, I like Tom Cruise. Yep. Okay. There's a funny show. There was a funny British show called The League of Gentlemen. And there's these two, film nerds, and they're at the local video store in their town, and they used to exist, and they're looking for something to rent in order for them to watch that night. And the one says, they're looking for a good scary movie with lots of murders, and the one says, how about this one, 7? And he says, well, how many murders are in it? And he says, I think 7. It's based on the 7 deadly sins. And he goes, don't be greedy, happy. And then he says, it's got that Bradley Pitt in it. Oh, okay, forget it. I don't like that Bradley Pitt. Too much acting. which is a great joke. Because Bradley Pitt is pretty good at playing Bradley Pitt. I mean, at older films, Thelma and Louise, he'd play a character role. True Romance, he had a really cool character role. 12 Monkeys? He had a really great character role. He'd play all these really interesting people, but I don't know. Then he just sort of kept being Brad Pitt and things, and it's too bad because those characters in those roles that I was mentioning, he's fantastic. There were some real, attempts there, some real reaching out for different eccentricities in the people he was portraying. Nope, the jam pages are at the jam, Chad. I every month I bring the jam pages home and I leave them alone. It's important. It's important everybody's doing it together. They masked his face for the new He-Man movie. Oh, there's a He-Man movie, is there? Good luck with that. Hi, Linda. Welcome aboard. Hi, Tim. So, yeah. He-Man movie. Boy, oh boy, what's going to happen when all the boys that grew up in the 1980s start to retire from entertainment industry and people are able to make new projects again? Enough nostalgia for the 80s, folks. I don't care if you grew up there. Some of that stuff is just getting played out at this point. It would be different if the 80s stuff that people are nostalgic for weren't all just, toy promo gimmicks, which is the unfortunate reality of a lot of the 80s things, Why don't we get a Space 1999 reboot if we're looking back for retro for stuff? You could really, or UFO, you could do a really cool reinterpretation of something and not be saddled by it having to have fan service. It could be some really neat stuff in there. Who knows? Why not have Vince Vaughn play do Battlestar Galactica, or not Battlestar Galactica, Space 1999, and Commander Koenig, played by Vince Vaughn. Terrible idea. Hey, babies, come on, we're going to the moon, baby. Yeah. That joke makes sense if you know who Vince Vaughn is. Thanks very much, Lynn. That's radio. Well, that's true. What Chad just said about it's all programming, ideologies, and you fit your messages in there for sure. What is it called? There's a new film by Sam Raimi, the guy who did he's done tons of things, but he's done a new film about an employee and their boss trapped on an island after a boat wreck or something, or a plane crash or something, and they got to survive. That's a fun little character exploration piece. That's interesting. Lots of interesting stuff in the last year like that, but most of it streaming services as opposed to into the theaters, because in the theaters is lots of noisy things, far more so than any compelling story things. So the trick, of course, with drawing characters in a line is making them smaller as we go along. So we did the jam last night. Lots of folks came out. It was good fun. Yeah. It's fun because it's immediate, right? Like it's just don't plan stuff. Don't get too caught up and some people will sit there and go, when I go to do the jam next month, I'm going to do these things. That's fine. But the disappointing thing for folks about doing pages at home and bringing them in is that instead take that time and work on a project. But the jam is where you just got to be immediate, not think about things too much, and just start working on a page. Build up that facility so that when you've got something you have to do, if it's for a project for a client or something like that, or project of your own, you're not going to be too hung up in the whole planning process, because you've allowed yourself to develop some of those muscles about, let's just do this thing. Let's just go with this. And then you'll see what comes out of it. That's fun. So here's our next person. Now, I said that I wanted to put somebody with some silly business like this in here. I think this is our guy. Just for whatever reason, put him in this silly mask thing. I don't know why. It's fun. Just keep it interesting. Do things for yourself. Don't worry about having to logistically make sense in the larger scheme of things. Sometimes it's fun to just play and add something silly in there. Someone will look at it and go, oh, is that dude wearing a little weird kind of a face mask thing? Yep. I like the idea of fashion in the future making zero sense at all. So I've been doing a bunch of sketch work in another an 8th sketchbook where I'm designing this book and all these little background characters and things like that, just to be silly and just to sort of work out that muscle about, you know, when I do engage in this thing, I've got all kinds of silly fodder for it. So there's our diagonal starting to appear. You can see more feet appearing now, and just to keep some semblance of order, let's just cut out some of these shapes. And I'm going to have to contextualize this in some way, shape, or form, because I don't have any context to say where this is. It's just a line. Where's the line? You know, in a hallway? Who knows? We haven't defined it yet. So here's our guy here who's reading a script. And then here's his shirt, the back of his pantalon. Nothing very much on a daily when drawing. There you go. That's the way to do it. Go with the flow. Should do sketchbook tours for live stream. Oh, my sketchbooks are terrifying. The wrong person sees my sketchbook, and I'm going to get introduced and welcomed into a very soft room. Very soft room for some quiet time. I think that guy needs some quiet time. Oh, boy. Do you see his sketchbook? Good heavens. So here's the next character. I'm not going to define too much about their satchel that they're carrying, just the rough outline of it. I try when I'm drawing ladies, I know that there's an inclination for some to really outline the different anatomy than boys have. And I'm not too interested in that. I really am not. Like, you can suggest things without them having to be too overt. It opens up it can open up an audience base, for one thing. It opens up people that may well feel comfortable in reading it. And it doesn't just become a book where you go, okay. So hopefully this makes a little more recognizable sense about our characters. The process of drawing from memory is a challenge for all. Well, sure, but like I said, with the other processes, is that these are muscles we need to develop, right? These are things that it just takes practice. It's, if we can allow ourselves to, when we're noticing the world around us, to try to keep track of these things that we see, so that when we need to draw upon that, when we're working on something, that's in there. That's in our box. box of tricks. So here's this guy here with the little mask on. Just something fun, you know. His pants are too long. Wearing his big brother's pants. So, yeah, so you can see the diagonal, hopefully it's starting here, so that the next person that I'm going to draw in we're just going to push this diagonal application here as well. So, I don't know if you can hear that. Drums in the background, that's my washer and dryer. I got laundry going. So we're going to put them, you know, show some little value in here to put our next person in the piece, and then the person that's behind them as well. But we're following this line up as it goes, so that by the time, you know, we've put enough marks down to find these characters, and then there's a consistent line here. I hope that yesterday, by pulling out the perspective pages, the perspective paper, and showing what that can offer was a benefit to people. There's something that we can, if we're having a challenge with something, there are different tools and different physical aids, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that can be utilized in order to help have an understanding of those things that are causing some challenge. And those perspective books are pretty good for that. You know, they're very handy dandy, all pre-lined pages, and you know, you play with those enough, scoodly-doo on those, before you know it, you're going to have an okay grasp at perspective in general. So I'm going to put a bag similar to this person's here in the foreground. Broke my pencil. I broke my pencil. And then here's our person standing behind it. And so our next, so we get our eyes in here. And we'll put some here on that person, little bob cut. And then our next person is going to be directly behind them. Yeah, so what's next? Well, we need to figure out and introduce, I think, either one of two things. We can you know, put into context what they're lining up for, you know, so we can have some kind of introduction of that, or more engagement with the personalities of the characters in the line. Like we're defining a couple different things about them, the expressions here, the different apparel that they're wearing, the different clickety-clack that they're carrying with them. There's why don't we put here, let me think of how to do this. And I have a leg kicked out, like so, and then the other leg inside, and then we'll have this person's body checking out the line. So we'll lean them out a little bit. Let me move I think the StreamYard thing is in the way there. That's all right. And then we'll put the next person behind them. And a little bit there. So, so the idea with this person, I might need to let that dry for a second. That's okay. Got to give it an extra moment there. So the idea is with this person that they're leaning out into the line see where it goes. So here they are leaning out like so. Just something silly, a little silly bit of fun. How far does this line go? A bit of a crew cut there, I guess, maybe. But here's this guy. What's going on down there? So, yeah, a little bit of outlining of some of our characters here. And I'm not going to focus too much on all of the details about them, because as we're going farther back, do we really need to see all of that anymore? So if it's easier just to outline them instead of adding in any little, marks like this inside, or little definers, let's just put an outline around these guys so as they recede off into the distance. We're monkeying around pretending like they're less and less focused. So I think that the plan for the next one, the next page will be, or the next panel will be to, let's get a little more character out of these people. Then we'll just put in a couple quick squiggly wets, and I'll let that dry for a minute, and I'll come back and draw some people in there. But there's our extended line, and let's figure out what's next. Because I really don't know. We could have a couple of characters talking. That might be something, right? So let's extend this line across the page here. So try this out with where you've allowed yourself to have a light colored marker, like a nice little pastel-y thing. Lori brought me this setback from her trip to the Netherlands, and there are exceptions to the rule in this set. So this light green would work, this pink would work, but I think maybe, yeah, even this purple would work, but this, this darker red, or whatever color it is, does it say? Magenta. It's a red. And this sky blue or azure, these are too dark. So you're going to be starting from a much darker place and roughing out your composition. These also work, this sort of thing, where you find an inexpensive set intended to be highlighters. Now, if you're looking for, thinking that my art needs to last the ages because it's going to change the world, don't use highlighters, because they are going to discolor over time, and the value is going to dissipate. But maybe not. Maybe they've gotten much better. But something to consider anyhow. So I'm going to put. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to figure out the bottom of this panel, and then, just to give ourselves a quick framework. And then there's the following panel below it. That's it. It's my exciting ruler time. So now's to put in some people in the line. But yeah, I got to take Chad, who's in the chat today. I got to take a look at his sketchbook. He's practicing a lot of basics and roughs and stuff like that. And it's good fun. Good fun. Looking good. It's a trap, though. Sometimes those. I'm going back to basics. I'm going to focus on this. I had a friend who did that for 4 years, and just because, he wanted to know how to draw all the things before he went on to do something with it, and it just kept him from going to do something with it because he was so focused on, well, what other things might I need to practice? And yeah, it's a trap. It can be, anyways. Anything in moderation, folks. So I'm putting in some characters in the line to give them a little bit of personality, but we can also give them a little bit of dialogue as well. So, this light, I'm exhausted. You're telling me I've been here since 4 a.m. Why? Because so I could stand in front of you in this line. Ha ha ha. Whatever the characters are saying. We haven't quite figured that business out yet, but we can draw them in, roughen them in with our blue line. See what that gives us. Just to keep it going, but at the same time, extend our story a little bit. There's a really cool movie that came out in Canada here, a few decades ago, called Cube. And I had a conversation with someone, and then it had a whole bunch of sequels, and who cares? But I think there were 4 of them in total. But Cube, it's somebody wakes up in a cube, and there's a door on each side of the cube, and some cubes are, you won't make it through that cube. And then other cubes are safe, and how do you know the difference? And it's fun, really fun and complex. It's one of those compelling things, but what it really is character studies of all the people that are in this challenging situation. And it's a lovely piece made here in Canada. Made in Canada, cool. It's funny, you can tell Canadian films because apparently we have 25 actors in this country. You can always tell films that are made in Vancouver because all the same sort of people start showing up in projects. Battlestar Galactica, when they filmed that in Vancouver, that's the giveaway. That's the one that blew it because it was so popular and it was much more widely aired. So a lot of people started becoming familiar with who these Canadian actors are. Good actors nonetheless. Some of them. No such thing as absolute. So I'm just drawing in, not getting ahead of myself. I just want to make sure I've defined this first couple of characters before I go farther, just so that it keeps me conscious of who I've put in here doing what, so that as I add more people in, I don't look back at these smudges and go, what was I doing there? What was I thinking of in that moment? Less thinky, the better. One of the things I like that I find compelling about a jam, and especially an all ages jam at that, is that so many different perspectives and interests and ideas to express, and it's a lot of fun. I did have to say this month, though, take it easy on the licensed characters. Yes. I want people to step out of that and allow themselves to not just do their fan interpretation of the thing that they like, but to allow themselves to go a little deeper in there and find some interesting story and to introduce fresh and on their own. Again, it's all about getting out of a comfort zone. So I hope it's not like the Sarlacc. Oh, you can get out of the Sarlacc. You just cover it in yuck. So here's these two guys, one leaning on the other's shoulders. It's my turn to lean. I mean, who knows what they're talking about. But it's just a fun little bit of character and a little bit of story by having, these two in this scenario. So then we can put, let's put, I'm gonna have to, that head's a little large. We're gonna have to let that dry for a second. So we'll put some more people in. I think I might have somebody with a helmet on because that's funny. Is it funny to anyone else? Don't know. Not worried about that. But why is this person wearing a helmet? Because it's, something I want to draw. So we've got somebody here. I'll do a little bit more of this in a second. So here's this young person leaning on his friend. There's his ear. There's his little sideburns. He's got some big hair there. Give him some big hair. Stylish young man. So here's these two guys. So thinking about their arms and shadow in there. So he's the one fella's leaning on the other one's shoulder. So here's these two guys there. Hey, Chris, welcome aboard. A hockey helmet. Haha, there you go. I always appreciate it when people get bad Canadian jokes. Nice lid there, bud. So now that I think about it, I think I want to draw an actual helmet. Somebody wearing a helmet. Oh, yeah, let's do that. So here's our next person, and giving them some big hair. Some big hair energy. This is the last lead piece I have for this light blue pencil, but I've got 8 other pencils to utilize, but I'm going to have to order some more of this non-photo blue lead. So there's their hair, and put their face in as well. So yeah, so we'll have, I'm just going to draw in some wrinkles into their outfit. There's a young lady character, and we'll give them a backpack that they're wearing over their shoulder. Oops, I forgot to put their face in. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a sec. As the blue pen ran out of ink. I'm watching from there, but mostly lurking in the background. Nice. So we've got, these are our 3 tools. There's the light blue brush pen. right? A pastel blue, very light water-based ink, and then we've got a light blue pencil and a dark blue pencil. And so we're laying in our composition elements with the light blue, the pastel blue brush pen. Then we're defining those a little more clearly with the Pilot light blue pencil, and then we're accentuating the separations of the characters with the dark blue, doing some outline stuff. And so it's a little 3-stage thing that gives us the opportunity to, start to carve out a story piece by piece. So there's our next character, and we'll put their straps in for their backpack. So why don't I come in and the more clearly defined shapes on our characters here. So this affords us the chance to expand our story by allowing our characters to converse with one another and start expressing perspectives on the scenario that they're in. So hopefully that's making sense of who's where. Yeah, so this gives us, we can have these things here, but once we get them talking, this lets us play with it a little more deeper. If we want to, we can be cheeky and try to make it go right to the end before we give away what they're doing or what they're there for. Gotta try to keep the story points general. Like, so, what are you going to get out of this? Well, I'm here for the experience, How about you? Oh, I got an uncle that could really use a hand. That doesn't really tell the reader anything other than, there's some potential gain at the end. That's kind of fun. Keep them guessing, keep them reading through the story until they, because some people are just hungry for what's the idea being expressed here. Oh, it's a time travel story? Okay, I get it. I'm out. I hate time travel stories. We don't want to lose people from an experience because they just make broad strokes of, aesthetic value on all time travel stories or something like that. So the trick is to try to keep it going until you just sort of say, oh, this is a line for, the machine that lets you go back and change your biggest mistake. Or this is the line for, wish fulfillment, or this is the line for potential superpowers, or whatever. But I hope I get flying, said by one of them right at the beginning, is sort of going to give away that it's superpowers, right? Oh, it's a superhero thing. I'm out. Okay, so hopefully there's very different personalities coming through in this. Let's have another lady here who's similar to our fellow over there, leaning in the line, trying to see what's going on. We'll have them doing the same. Trying to look ahead in the line by peeking around these people. Just play. Just try different things. the less that you have this over concern, over expectation, the less fun you're going to have while creating your page. So there's another piece of paper. I'm going to keep plunking these in places. Why not, right? Right. Right, that's another tall fella. Don't want to exclude tall people out of drawings. I'm sensitive to the plight of those suffering from too much heightitis. I want to make a television commercial about it. Hi. Sometimes it's really hard to go all the way down to the ground to tie up my shoes. Do you have a problem like this? Well, here's a way you can help. Too much heightitis is an affliction that's presenting itself to more and more young people every year. And you can help them out. What do they say in America? Write to your congressman or whatever. Or in Canada, we say, give me a handy. So here's this person. Their hair hanging down here as they're trying to peek around the line. Here's a testimony from Bob. Hi, my name's Bob. I'm taller than the average person, but it's no fault of my own, and it's something I've just had to live with my whole life. You know, people look at me and go, can you get this down for me? And whenever I'm in the grocery store and I got to reach up on shelves and all the way to the back, because, you know, the box of cornflakes that they're there to pick up it's the last one, and that's the end of the very far side of the shelf. Maybe I really don't like cornflake. I don't want to, you know, have to reach up in there and touch it. Or maybe I just don't like touching cornflake boxes or boxes in general. It's hard because they don't think about my feelings. Are you like Bob? I'm listening and watching on TV, texting kids. It's negotiation. Oh my. I went to visit my grandparents at their home, and the doors were all too low. What if I never get to see my loved ones again because I can't get in the room? Totally made up and baloney campaigns for support. It's probably important to say at this point that if anybody tries to raise funds, contacts you by the telephone and says, hi, I'm trying to collect funds for people that suffer from too much heightitis, just hang up the phone. It's not real. They're just trying to take advantage of your big-heartedness. If you want to help out those that are suffering from heightitis, get some of those running shoes that have, we saw somebody walking across the street with these last night. They have like 3 or 4 inch lifts on the bottom of their running shoes. Yes, Corbin. No, Corbin says hi, everybody. So here's our next 2 people in line. So I got this guy holding a book. Tell me what you need. That's how you get it out of them. That's how you do it, Liz. Chris says meow back, Corbin. I think Corbin wants to say hi. You want to say hi? Come on. Hey, how you doing, babies? How's everybody doing today? There, does that scratch your itch? Or go have a nap. I don't care if you're drawing. It's all about me, Corbin says. Me. So here's our last person in this section of the line. So yeah, so as I'm drawing, I'm starting to think about story points as I go, like what kind of things am I going to have people say, and what's their personality tell us, an expression on their face or something like that. So, oh, Liz and Tim, say hi too, bud. Just, I've shown before the expression book that I'd picked up in Toronto that time. I could show it again if people need it to see it, if they didn't see it before. But it's literally just a book that is just pages and pages of expressions, and it's a helpful thing to understand all the different expressions on faces and the different character portrayed therein, so that you can incorporate that kind of thing and as you're drawing stuff out. So there's our first guy. And then we'll draw this Looky Loo over here, who's trying to sneak around everybody else's position in the line, so she can see what's going on up at the front. So I'm not putting tons of lines in these people. I'm letting the other blue line that I've used represent that. But in this case, I am going to darken up those characters' hair, make it stand out enough from the next person. I don't know if you can hear Corbin purring beside me, but he's having a great old time there. I've humored him a little too much lately as he's sitting beside me in the studio. I've let him, sit on my lap a couple times, and now he's just thinks that's just the go-to. You got to let me sit down there. Give me a little space here. Move over, Jack. So, yeah, maybe this is the place where I'm going to put our spaceman with his helmet on, or just a big helmeted person. Oh, why not? Let's just put a spaceman. So I'm thinking about the gloves and the segments, the sort of bulbous segments in the limb. And in a second, I'm going to have to consider the shape of the apparatus in the front of their suits. And so we'll deal with those in just a second. So tubes. And then there's all of that collar. It connects to the round helmet here. So here's our spaceman coming together for whatever reason. And And then we'll put another young lady standing in front there. Just put some wrinkly lines in for their outfit, and hair in the front. Okay. Do I have a preferred sketchbook? No. I think the largest one that I have, let's see if I can fit it in camera. The largest sketchbook I have going is this one. It's 18 by 24. And I'm not going to be able to get all of it in, but we'll see what we can do. So this is one of my sketchbooks. And so I do drawings much larger than others. So this is pencil, this is paint, just trying different approaches to things. And this is brand and size. Okay, so this is by Artist Loft. And the paper's good. It lets me do different things with it. This is pastel. So these are studies of Michelangelo. And this is the Prophet Jonah. So there's a fish. You see some fish. This is, the top half of it is colored pencil. And then the bottom half of this one is ballpoint pen. So it's just trying different. There's a red drawing pencil on that side. So this, and here's studies from the Raft of Medusa. I think it is. I think that's a raft of the Medusa. Anyhow, so it's just trying different stuff out. Let's see if I can find something that isn't a massive drawing on here. Yeah, here we go. So this is studies for a series that was going on. And this is me laying out a whole bunch of different studies for what eventually ends up being chalk painting. A chalk and acrylic combination piece. And so this is me, once I've decided on one of those rough things, then I started sketching out different ways to implement said drawing. Quick and loose. And yeah. So that's one sketchbook. And let's see what I got handy. Here's another one. Which is silly business. But there's two trucks driving through a washed out flat. And there's a doctor's office, and there's a digger. There's a truck. So there's different advantages to any, to different sizes of things. One makes you be as highly advantageous because you can throw it in a pocket and take it with you wherever you go. But another one's really good for you to stretch out and to explore some things. The other sketchbook that I commonly show is this is your standard. I'm not sure what the measurements are on this. That's a problem with peeling off the solicitation thing that they scan at the store as soon as you get it home, is that you don't find out all the business. But this is the standard thing that I show, all the craziness that I layer one thing over top of the next, and so on and so forth. So, but that's your standard size sketchbook, which is, very in the middle of the other two. So yeah, well, I guess let's see what else is handy dandy next to me. This is a sketchbook that is on a mole. I think it's called a moleskin sketchbook, and this is the one where I've shown these before, but this is much, for scale. That's where it sits with the little one. So it's between these two. Like it's, step down, step down. And then there's, I guess these are the step between the moleskin and the little one. There are these two. And so the one is white paper, so I'm scribbling and doodling in this one, right? Haunted bow tie. Anyone that wears it kills. It's a bear in a boat. And so that is much closer in size to the little one. Hi, Seven. How you doing? And then this one is similar in size to that. So, and this is a page that I drew that's in the first one page. So I drew the first volume of One Page Extravaganza includes this story. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. So there's the original drawings on this. So this whole sketch book is craft paper. And then here's the page that came out of it. So I scanned my panels here, and then I reordered them and put them in here. But there's a scan of the actual page, like so. And so this is a yellow marker, a red pen, and then I put white pencil and yellow paint and white ink flicked on it as well for the fun little softening texture. So that's that. And and then that one is that big. So that's the closest ones that I have to me. I have more sketchbooks kicking around. Here's one where I'm just roughing out page breakdowns, really. And that's the whole point of this process, is just to rough out story beats and page ideas, for projects that I may well not ever do. But, I've taken a moment and put them together. And then that wasn't something that held me long enough to continue doing it. So it's a lot of this sort of a drawing approach, less so than the density of the previous sketchbook that's the same size. And then I have another sketchbook upstairs that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, and the 8th sketchbook that I have that's upstairs is just characters. It's literally an entire sketchbook where I'm just drawing characters. Just, silly business. But, it's whatever I pick up or feel like carrying with me. Or I saw on a person's channel that they had a red, similar to like how this is entirely craft paper. They had a sketchbook that was just red paper. And they have another one that's just black paper. And I want to find them. Because, woohoo, that would be fun. Because so many of the surfaces that I work on will be different colored paper. Or, well, here I can show you. I also like to work on this sort of thing. These are different surfaces for doing one-page stories. So this is just random bits of paint. I'm just trying to move something out of the way here. There's just a bunch of stickers in a pile. So this is paint on an old, it's kind of like a matte, really thin matte board. Acrylic paint on paper. That's what all this is. This is one of the pages that Yolanda sent me that she'd done some jelly plate printing on. There's another one. And so these are all surfaces to draw on. This is craft paper with paint rolled on it. This is cardstock. This is a Yolanda jelly plate image. So it's this one. So it's this one. This is cleaning off a roller on my own. This is jelly plate printing that I do, which is terrible. Same. That's cleaning off a brush again. So all of these different random surfaces, and then here's printing numbers, letters, for whatever reason I felt compelled to do so on red cardstock. And here's another one on red cardstock, and here's one on craft paper. So all of these different random things, you can see how bad I am at jelly plate printing. Here's one of the only things that has any recognizable details in it. But I tried different stuff. And, you know, this is the things I get to do stuff on. And there's just more and more of that. And then I found these. This is a sketchbook, a pile of sketchbook paper that I have that's all faux, you know, tie-dye or whatever this would be called. And it's all kinds of different colors, combinations of that to draw on. And there's another Yolanda paper. This is the absence, the absence of the stickers that I printed earlier with the letters. A love affair with maps. Yeah, I have to do something with that. This is a collage page to work on. This is a bunch of scrap pieces of paper that I put together and then glued, you know, additional bits of paper on top and then started to prime it. This is a bunch of collaged pieces of paper and tissue papers. And in this image, here's, you know, there's a map, someone's house layout. It's just some random things for another project. There's the inside of an envelope. There is no rules over what we can work on. I'm found to draw on acrylic, you have to use a super light touch, says Liz. What are you drawing on the acrylic with? That's the magic question. Because you can draw on something like this. A Papermate pen will draw on this quite easily. Yeah. Try a regular pen instead of a jelly pen. A regular old Bic stick. Chris says I can get black printer paper at my local shop, packages of 100 pieces. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's very cool. Yeah. Different colored papers too. Dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So yeah, whenever I separate a piece of paper off from a larger piece, I save it so that I have envelopes like this in my studio where it's just, you know, little cuts and trims of things for me to put into, you know, to tear up and to put into surfaces or you know, if I just want to test something out on these little bits of paper. Yeah, it's a highly textured little piece of paper there. So I keep these around in order to use them somehow. Waste not, want not. And I keep stuff like this where I'll glue something like this is an onion bag, you know, which your onions come in. And I'll cut off a piece, and if I want netting in something, I can put this in there, or just an interesting surface to paint on top of. I'll put this in a surface. I do some random things. I'm a little bit random. That's why my friends call me Whiskers. Then I'm rough. No, there's Jelly Pen has. Let me see if we can. So with different jelly pens, the end of it, even though it's supposed to be a roller ball, it's a little more rough. It really is. It's a little more scratchy than a regular old Uniball, Bic Pen type roller, Papermate, all those different brands, because it's a larger round tip at the top, so it's less scratchy. So yeah, try the old standby pens, the old standard writing pen. All right, so I'll finish drawing in our Hello Spaceman. And so this is me putting in these segmented areas for his spacesuit. And then we'll put his glove in as well. So the big shape cutting I was doing with our marker just sort of gives me an idea. This lets me think about the volume of the figures, the characters that I'm putting in. But those details, those choices that I make after that those are done using these two pencils. Primarily the light one, and then the details the emphasis points are all picked up with the darker one. So, but the bones are already here from the marker. So here's a regulatory tube of some kind, or oxygen tank. I don't know what these are. It's a tube. Here's his tube. And here's his second tube. So by drawing the details in the second tube, I don't have to draw the details of this side of the first tube, because your brain's going to fill them in for me. Why? Because I'm lazy. So there's our second tube. And then here's the front of our spaceman suit. Silly business, but why not? My story. I want to put a spaceman in there. Somebody in an astronaut suit. Who knows? Maybe it's part of his costume. So it wasn't me. Well, I mean, again, the marks that we make do affect the surface, but sometimes you got to press harder with things. If here's an idea: when you're putting acrylic down on a surface that you're going to draw on, roll it on and don't paint it, because when you paint it, like when you roll it, there'll be a texture in it, similar to the texture of the paper. Is where you paint it on, it's a little more plasticky. So here's our spaceman. And there, just a little intimation of his face in there. Without drawing his whole face. So, yeah. Let's put our outline on him, and what time are we at? 2.5. Hopefully this is helpful, not boring stuff. Oops. There's just if his arm gets chopped off by an alien there, you can cauterize it there. That's the thinking in there. I watched too many sci-fi movies. Someone calling me on a number I don't know. Let's get back to them. And we'll just darken up the bit of detailing here. So there's our spaceman. Why is there a spaceman there again? I don't know. Okay. Chat's off. Take care, man. Have a good day. Okay, so we'll draw our last person in here in this panel, and then I'm not going to spoil the big ending for anybody else. I'll save that for when I post this tomorrow. So here's our next person standing in line. She's got lots of hair. And we'll put some folds in her outfit here. So I really didn't put any shape detail in here for this person's face, so I have to make that up right now. So here's our character here. All right, so there's that final character on this row, and then it's just outlining them and, you know, a couple little emphasis points and details, and then we're all set for this panel. Again, I really haven't established any kind of context of where they're all standing quite as yet, so we'll see if I decide to come back in and do that or not when I post this tomorrow. So tomorrow's Wednesday. I've got a bunch of running around to do in the day, and I'll be around Wednesday night, 8 p.m. EST. So if you're up for it, come on out and hang out in the evening. If you're in California, that's 5 o'clock. If you're in Central America, it's 7 o'clock. I can't figure out much more than that. There you go. That's a good negotiation. Land of the Blue People with a surprise ending. There we go. So we got our people standing in line, and it carries over to giving us space for dialogue and extending out, what's the deal with these people, and just getting even more into the character of them as we go through. And then of course we got to have some sort of closing aspect to it where, it's some summation of the whole thing as we've moved along. So by the time we get down to that last panel, we've got enough investment in an idea of the fact that these people are lining up purposely for something. But just the question might be, are they all lining up for the same thing? Right? So the way that I've done this page is using these 3 tools here the pastel blue brush pen, water base, and then the light blue drawing pencil and a dark blue drawing pencil. And so all of the details and stuff we just roughed in loosely with the brush pen, started picking out the details with the light blue pencil, and then the emphasis points with the dark one. So try it out if you've got light colored markers kicking around. Take a look at this process. One thing I'd recommend is find something, like find an object. Like, I was going to hold up a fan. That might be a little complex. Okay, so here's a cylindrical shape. So find an object like this and hold it up, and then try to just draw the dark bits with your brush pen, right? And then start picking out the overall shape of your object with the light colored pencil, and then use this just to put in some emphasis points with your dark pencil. You don't have to do solid lines. You can allow breaks in the lines for the eye to move around. But something to consider, trying this process out, this way of approaching a page. It's no different than, do I have this? It's a similar way that I do these, where I'm sketching pages like this, and I'm just using a marker, like a flat water-based, gray chisel tip marker, and a black line tool. Actually, I think what I use is, can I find them? Yeah, I can. What I use for this is this kind of a pen for the single little lines. Is like a Micron or a studio version. Just thin lines, right? Simple lines. We're not worried about all of the things. Like, we're not trying to put all of the details of everything in. We're getting the idea of it. This is just, finding our way around alleys full of garbage, a weird way to draw some trees. But we might find something in the weird way of drawing these trees that we like, that may have a larger effect on how we draw trees. And then putting some emphasis points around objects and compositions allows those to stand out further towards us, where our eye is drawn more directly to those, and helps it differentiate them from the background, or separate layers within the space of overlap of things. So try this as a sort of thing. These are backgrounds for the dance number that I'm doing to finish off another book that's coming out this year. So yeah, try some of these ideas out, and you can take them really far. I mean, you can just keep doing tons and tons of these types of scribbly doodles and see what it gives you. But what it really does is helps you understand form and volume of objects in space. So okay, I'm missing stuff. Looks like a comic or a concert, a museum, or a Comic-Con. Yeah, I guess. I watched a video about AI serum like a dog, and AI is like the human. We don't know what AI is planning or what AI is doing, what it means. Isn't that freaky? We had a funny conversation last night at the Comic Jam, and that is somebody posted a video where a cow in a field has taken a kitchen broom and used it to scratch its back, and it's made people believe that that's the big deal. Cows are starting to use tools. I don't think it's a real image personally, but how does it hold the broom with hooves? So, but anyways, the whole thing about that is it turned into this large conversation about everybody sweating AI. Well, maybe we should keep an eye on the cows, right? Gives me many ideas on how to make images showing the humans as subordinate. There you go. To AI sneaky control. And AI is run by the cows. Who knows? All right, Chris is good. See you around. Thanks very much for coming out. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining us, Liz and Linda and everybody else. We've got Seven and Chad and Malcolm all taking part in our conversation today, and it's great to have everybody come and join us. So, yeah, I hope everybody has a good day, and that go and explore some ways of making images and some ways of telling stories, and have fun. Play. Go play a little. I'll be posting this for tomorrow's social media, and tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I will be streaming, 8 p.m. EST. I will be streaming here again. Watch everybody. Have a good day. Bye for now.